has had a bone to pick with Kingpin for decades, and in Ultimate Spider-Man 12, he got some of that out of his system. On a comic page from the early 2000s that would never make it to print today, Spider-Man knocks the Kingpin of crime down a few pegs in a series of jokes and references about the man's mountain-like stature. Spider-Man didn't even just say the jokes like the way he usually does, which is like off the cuff kind of quips. He had them written out on multiple pieces of paper like he was reading the man's eulogy. Spidey was cooking these up for a while, and the payoff was totally worth it considering he defeated Kingpin in the end. But don't feel too bad for the guy. He did crush a man on camera and has been terrorizing New York at the street level, selling bad substances, so really, Kingpin had it coming. Ultimate Spider-Man was unhinged in the way only a teenage boy can be, which means, of course, your mom jokes are on the table when it comes to psyching out an opponent. In this case, Spider-Man is up against some troublesome muggers. They don't really take Spider-Man seriously at first because he's not wearing his costume. He needed a new one, but crime waits for nobody, so he is fighting in a mask, sweatpants, and a little sweater. I would say the thugs and Peter are at the same high school boy age of maturity, so when they do confront Peter about his lack of bodycon, Peter responds, "Your mom's washing it for me." And then he fights the guys and leaves them in a pile of webs on the ground. One of the thugs even says this experience will haunt him for years. Personally though, I think that when Peter is, like high school age Spider-Man, he is embarrassing all his villains when he meets them. Imagine being a grown adult and spending a bunch of money and time trying to end the world, and then some random teenager swings in and defeats you, all while attacking your insecurities in a series of well-timed jokes. Embarrassing. Anyway, Flash Thompson is a piece of work and a thorn in Peter Parker's side. Now, Peter can't really fight back at full power at school because that would blow his cover, but he does what he can. Take the basketball scene from Amazing Spider-Man, for example. But if Peter really wants to roast Flash and not get punched for it, he has to be wearing his suit. One of my favorite Flash-directed roasts from Spider-Man happened in the show The Spectacular Spider-Man. Across the board, Spider-Man is like on something else. He is so funny in this show, and we will mention more one-liners down the list, but for Flash, Spider-Man just saved him from a threat, and Peter is given the perfect chance to roast him when he is sitting bewildered a few feet in front of him. Spider-Man says, "Appreciate the help, fanboy, but keep clear, you're not pretty enough to save twice." And he said that to him in front of his whole friend group. How would anyone ever live that down? Think about high school boys. That moment will follow Flash for the rest of his life. Sticking with the Spectacular Spidey thing, Kraven the Hunter might have bested Peter in the comics, the traumatic Buried Alive comic, just for an example, but in the Spectacular Spider-Man, Peter got the upper hand. After Kraven acted, well, like Kraven, Spider-Man asked the guy where he was from. Hunter shared Mother Russia by way of Mother Africa, and the Spider's response, "Wow, two moms and still so ill-behaved. No wonder Kraven buried him." Again with the Spectacular Spider-Man, now focusing on everything this kid had to say about Rhino, my god, he would not let this man breathe. I mean, he is easy to insult, like look at him for 2 seconds, just the fit alone, and Spider-Man has material for days. Take the interaction from season 1, episode 6, for example. Rhino is breaking and entering the Daily Bugle building looking for Peter, and surprisingly, Jameson is the one to slow him down with a series of excuses, to which Rhino says, "What, do you think I'm stupid?" And Spider-Man swings in with, "Well, you are dressed stupid," gagged. Then in episode 11, after Rhino escapes from prison, Spider-Man says, "Ah, Rhino, I knew no prison was wide enough to hold you." Rhino does laugh at this, promptly for Spidey to double kill with, "I knew they taught trades in the Slammer, but a sense of humor." Unhinged behavior from him, and then in a later episode after defeating the Rhino again, he calls out for the crowds to come admire the world's largest dehydrated turtle. At what point do you just give up and find another city to bother? Rhino's threshold for embarrassment is admirable. Sometimes some villains get a bit too high up in the world and think they're untouchable, but Spider-Man has no problem bringing them back down, and I mean that literally. In Marvel Adventures Spider-Man 21, Stiltman makes his appearance. You can probably guess from the name, but the guy walks around in a super tall metal suit where the legs are in fact stilts. He's not only physically high up, but also mentally taunting the city as he robs banks and other bad things. Concerned citizens are quick to find Spidey and ask how he will possibly defeat a threat like this, to which Spidey says it will take a very sophisticated and specialized technique of tripping him. The villain goes down and only escapes because of his buddy, but he does get defeated in the end. Still, so embarrassing, like everybody in the city saw that. Peter Parker's roast of Harry Osborn in the PS5 Spider-Man 2 game is completely out of pocket and yet surprisingly not out of character at the time considering he had a sim connected to him. It's so funny, it deserved a spot on this list. Peter, MJ, and Harry are having a chat/disagreement because Peter has been acting strange. Both MJ and Harry ask Peter to give up the sim suit in some way, so Peter is a little on edge. It's also important to note that Harry is like visibly unwell in this moment, kicking a guy when he's down. When Peter is showing hesitation to give up the suit, Harry makes a side comment, and Peter took it very personally. For some reason, he decides to go straight for the jugular with the response, "Why don't you pop some more pills and say what you're really feeling?" Harry was not doing a thing to Peter in this particular moment. He was literally just sitting in a chair and Peter went off. Sure, maybe Harry wasn't being a menace to society in this moment, but Harry Osborn does become Green Goblin later in life, so it counts. No one in the Osborn family is safe from the wrath of Peter's wit though. Norman Osborn, the Goblin King, has been on the receiving end of many a Spider-Man roast, to the point where he can tell it's the real guy based on his battle commentary. Back when Peter mind-swapped with Doc Ock and then passed in his body, Doc Ock took up the mantle of Spider-Man and fought crime around the city in Peter's place. This meant that the villains Spider-Man often encountered began receiving very different treatment than what they were used to. When Peter, of course, returned to life and then to his own body, Green Goblin knew right away because suddenly Spider-Man was funny again. The jab that caught Goblin's attention was he had just finished a whole monologue about how Peter would have nothing left, to which Peter responded, "Except the dignity of knowing I never carried a man purse." Iconic, what can I say? It took Green Goblin like less than 5 seconds to realize Peter had returned, and then he promptly detonated a bomb and tried to escape. J. Jonah Jameson has been Spider-Man's biggest hater since day one, and at some point Spider-Man has to draw the line. After years of being slandered in the media, Spider-Man decided to take him to court, and it's as chaotic as one would expect and completely embarrassing for Jameson. His own son testifies against him, then a police officer, then his own staff, and finally the web slinger himself, Spider-Man. Everyone collectively agrees that Jameson has had an unreasonable vendetta against the hero, but Spider-Man's moment on the stand takes the cake for sure. First off, he gets away with wearing his mask on the stand thanks to an Avengers identification device. Peter does start with actually answering the questions, but when directly asked why he believes Jameson hates him, Peter has the most out-of-pocket response that again would not fly today. He says, "After some very serious thought and soul searching, I think I figured it out. The real reason Jonah hates me is because I'm black." This is Peter Parker, Wonder Bread, Wonder Boy, Caucasian male. Of course, J. Jonah Jameson immediately starts stuttering and claiming that he had no idea and pulls the "I have friends" card until Spider-Man takes mercy and tells the court that he is kidding. But he really did have Jameson for a minute there. Paste Pot Pete got so embarrassed during his run-in with Spider-Man, he literally just walked away from the fight to change his name. Defeated by laughter, only Spider-Man can make that happen. Let's set the scene. It's Spider-Man, Human Torch 1. Spider-Man senses someone is taking an aim at the Human Torch, so he steps in to fight the villain. The villain, of course, pulls the whole "I am the Human Torch's greatest enemy," and he's on a roll, really, but then he says his name, Paste Pot Pete, which is a stupid name, sorry, and Spider-Man promptly hits the floor laughing, saying "Paste Pot P," and laughing so hard he shoots webs from his nose. Pete is literally so embarrassed he doesn't even try to fight the Spider-Man rolling on the ground and just leaves with, "That's it, I'm changing my name." And he did. Now he goes by Trapster. Spidey is known for his little quips and no one is safe from them. The Peter Parker of Earth 19,529, or the Spider-Man life story world, roasted Mr. Fantastic like he has never been roasted before. After finding out that Mr. Fantastic is withholding life-changing information from the public, again, Peter goes off on the guy. I mean, Mr. Fantastic is also talking like he is God and superpowered people are better than your average human, which Peter doesn't really appreciate. Peter says, "You're so not human that even your wife left you for a man who lives under the sea," because this is the world, of course, where Susan Storm left him for Namor. Yeah, Peter was slapped for that one, but he figured that it was the least he could do after burning the guy that bad. bad. But the rest of the team isn't safe from being served some Spider-Man embarrassment either. In the early days of Marvel Comics, Spider-Man was looking for a team to join because he was looking for a salary. So he tried to make the Fantastic Four the Fantastic Five. Only when he leaped into the F4 headquarters, he ended up in a glass cage that he immediately broke out of despite costing the F4 thousands of dollars. He smacked the thing clear across the room, taking the Human Torch out with him, trapped Mr. Fantastic in a web, and Mrs. Fantastic was spun around until she was dizzy. All in all, he gave the team quite a run for their money. Spider-Man in the Ultimate Universe was the highlight of that show, and Ultimate Spider-Man 67, the story where he gets body swapped with Wolverine, is just so funny. Not the stuff with Mary Jane, of course. I'm mainly referring to the banter between the unlikely pair. Turns out, Jean Grey had swapped the two as punishment to Logan because he thought being in Peter's body would be the worst thing to ever happen, and it was for the both of them. Wolverine, with his rough approach to life, nearly ruined Peter's relationships with almost everyone, but Peter also caused some trouble, getting the guy arrested and of course making quite a few jokes at his expense, including calling Wolverine's body a chia pet and smelly. Many times, stinky dog body were his exact words. Then in a battle later, as Peter is quipping away in Logan's body, the man stops him because Peter is making him look bad. Since the X-Men caused Peter so much grief when he is swapped back, he kinda goes off on them, resulting in the iconic panel in which Spider-Man tells the team why people really hate them and then proceeds to use such colorful language it's not even written out on the page before swinging away. The X-Men decided to send Peter a basket of something as an apology. But that's not the only time Peter has embarrassed the X-Men. Towards the start of the team's journey, Spider-Man received a personal invitation to join the team in X-Men 27. Professor X himself requested that Beast and Iceman ask Peter, but he turned them down. He said it was because he had already turned down the Avengers, and I guess it wouldn't look good to turn them down and then accept another offer so soon after. Spider-Man also did it because he believed fate meant for him to be a loner. He really was an angsty teen. He literally swung away and left the two X-Men just standing there, wondering how he could turn away such an amazing offer. There was also the moment in the original Secret Wars series where Spider-Man meets the X-Men again, but on very different terms. He literally bursts onto the scene and takes the team out, all while jumping and backflipping out of reach. He makes it look easy. Wolverine literally says Spider-Man made them look like fools and amateurs. Spider-Man got the chance to fight the Hulk in Amazing Spider-Man 328. In that issue, Hulk remarks that Spidey was a lot stronger than he remembered, and despite the strength the Hulk is working with, Spider-Man still comes out on top. Hulk might have had to escape because the sun was coming up, and at this point he could only come out at night, but that is so beside the point. A later fight between the two heroes in Spider-Man Unlimited 11, that happened on the news, and it was cool because we watched it in the comic as if we were sitting in our local restaurant. The broadcast shows a tough fight. Hulk looks like he is winning at one point, patrons start placing bets, but then Spidey kicks the Hulk into a wall and a cement truck falls on him. Of course, throughout the whole fight, Spider-Man is also throwing out little jokes and jabs. So not only was the Hulk defeated and had a cement truck dropped on him on national TV, he also had a sarcastic commentary going too. There were a few other times when the heroes brawled, but some of them had outside factors that made the fight unfair, like tranquilizer gas for the Hulk. Peter has told MJ that he thinks he can kill the Hulk, but Peter has a no-kill rule. One thing about Spider-Man and Daredevil, they are going to throw a few punches. These two are operating in the same, admittedly large city, but still every once in a while they cross paths in ways that result in them fighting each other instead of working together. Even times when they are supposed to be working together, the plans don't always go so well. Take Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man 110 for example. The two heroes are rushing to save a victim from the Sin Eater, but after the villain is down, pretty soon Daredevil and Spider-Man have turned on each other. Peter had an emotional stake in this particular fight, so he was operating out of a place of anger, meaning he was being a bit too rough with this particular villain, and Daredevil stepped in. Very heroic of him, he tried to talk Spider-Man down, but that just got him thrown out a window by Peter, and then chased through the streets. Daredevil even says that if Peter were more in his right mind, he'd be finished. Then there was also the Amazing Spider-Man 287, in which Peter and Matt were in a cab together, and of course, they started arguing, eventually tumbling out of that cab to brawl on the sidewalk. Peter almost won that fight if it weren't for the fact that they were in their civilian identities, so to the world, Matt is just a blind man that Peter is beating up on the sidewalk. Not a good look, Peter was physically removed by the cab driver. Those two were either the greatest team to hit New York or at each other's throats, no in between. Not even heroes from different universes are safe from the wrath of Spider-Man. Superboy, the one from DC. Yes, he went toe-to-toe with the web-slinger and did not come out victorious. This one is controversial because there was a bit of a God in the Machine happening here. For this face-off, it was part of a voting thing. DC and Marvel characters were up against each other, and then fans could vote about who would win the fight, and in this instance, Spider-Man won that vote, which is embarrassing on its own, but then there's also how he won the battle in the comic. It was a good time. Spidey held his own against Superboy. At one point, a water tower gets busted and floods where the two heroes are fighting. Superboy moves to attack Spider-Man, but instead he gets webbed and crashes into a high voltage box, and you can imagine how that went inside the water. The fight was over and Superboy was cooked. Spider-Man really embarrassed all the spider people and things in Into the Spider-Verse when he was able to outrun all of them. Miles Morales has proven himself to be a force to be reckoned with over the past few movies, and in the comics too, of course, but this ain't about that. There is no reason for Miles to be able to not just outrun, but also outwit thousands of spider variants from across the universe, other than he's just that special and different and cool. I imagine the sting from that was hard to nurse, and I can't wait to see how the Spider Society moves forward when they finally release the second half, hopefully. Iron Man might be a father figure to Peter in the MCU, but that story is very different in the comics. I mean, it kind of depends on who is writing, but whoever did Amazing Spider-Man 536, Volume 413, or Spider-Man Annual 20 certainly wanted to see those two tussle. The Spider-Man and Iron Man of the MCU are so tame in comparison to the comic versions of themselves. MCU Tony would give Peter a jukebox and play catch in the backyard. Comic Tony has tried throwing Peter across Manhattan. MCU Tony left Peter Edith. Comic Tony roasted Peter's company to the point of Spider-Man punching him across the face and the resulting brawl being live streamed across New York. Tony tends to forget that he is but a man in a metal suit. A powerful metal suit, but a man at the end of the day. And sometimes he needs a little reminder every once in a while. Spider-Man has given him that reminder quite a few times. ASM 536 Iron Man is after Spidey because Peter is against the Superhuman Registration Act. Peter wins the fight, he overrides Iron Man's armor, and then webs him in the face for good measure. ASM 13 featured the fight after Tony insulted Peter's company to his face. In his defense, he didn't know Peter was Spider-Man, and he was saying all that stuff to Spider-Man, not Peter, but still getting clocked in front of all your friends, fans, and the internet at large, that's embarrassing. Amazing Spider-Man Annual 20 features a bunch of, Tony time travel, but the important thing to this video is that Spider-Man gets really mad at Iron Man and throws him into a construction site and then attacks him until Tony is saved by time shifting back to his reality. Rough. Captain America and Spider-Man are an unlikely sparring pair, but when they do go toe-to-toe, it's always a fun read. Cap even once admitted that he wasn't as strong as Spider-Man. But the truly embarrassing Captain Spider-Man moment happened in an alleyway. Peter at this point is wanted by the FBI, and Cap is trying to reason with him, but Peter is having a rough go of it. Cap ends up getting punched in the face. He's holding back his feelings about all of this a bit, I think, because he can tell that Peter is just acting out because he's going through it. Cap takes his shield to block another punch, but Peter grabs that shield and smashes it in the Captain's face. I think I would quit if someone defeated me with my own indestructible superhero symbol. To top it off, Peter escaped, adding some salt to the wound.
Dazzler is a pretty confident person, but even she has had her day ruined by, you guessed it, Deadpool. And after he helped save her, no less. This all went down in Deadpool issue number 31 from the 2013 run on Deadpool. Here, Deadpool is in the past where he saves Alice and Blair from a bunch of vampires. However, their vamp hunting is not done just yet. But when Deadpool gets an important text, he ends up ditching Daz to deal with an emergency, leaving her to face the rest of the vampire horde solo. While Dazzler kind of just gets left holding the bag there, Wolverine sets himself up for this moment of embarrassment in Wolverine issue number 88. It all goes down when Deadpool decides to pay Garrison Kane a visit at the very same time Wolverine does. Or just before, rather. Wolverine is there to check in on Garrison on behalf of his friend James Hudson, aka Guardian from Alpha Flight, but Deadpool arrived just a bit before to find Kane so that he might get to his ex, Vanessa Carlyle, who he heard was running around with the cyborg. Deadpool trashes the place, but Garrison and Vanessa are not there, and he can't seem to figure out where they've gone. not. When Wolverine arrives, he's all wound up and he's ready to fight the old knucklehead, making quick work of him too when Logan leaps over Deadpool, kicking him in the face just as Deadpool comes up underneath the Wolvie and shish kebabs him. Who do you think is a more skilled fighter between the two of these characters? They both have a healing factor, but whose do you think is stronger? Is it one of them or actually someone else who has the strongest healing factor in comics too? Personally, I think Wolverine's is pretty strong. I also think Wolverine maybe has a better skill set, but no offense, Wade. I think you also got some moves, clearly. Elektra and Deadpool are both members of the Thunderbolts. While working on the team together back in the days of 2013, circa Volume 2 of the Thunderbolts, they didn't always team up together. But when they did, it was honestly a riot. Case in point, Thunderbolts Annual Issue number 1, where we saw them team up together to steal Elsa Bloodstone's Bloodstone Choker. They sneak into Bloodstone Manor, and throughout the heist, Deadpool is constantly in awe of everything Elektra is doing. While his fanboying doesn't seem to faze her, she is bothered by his constant loud exclamations of praise because, you know, being loud while you're trying to sneak around on a heist is usually ill-advised. Needless to say, much to the disappointment of Elektra, they do get caught by Elsa and her monsters, and are locked up in a dungeon with the most unruly monsters in her manor, the ones who can't be redeemed or reasoned with. That's what happens when you team up with Wade on a sneaking mission. It doesn't go well. Deadpool has embarrassed many a team, and he has also embarrassed not just Psylocke, but the entire X-Force team here when he pulled them in the 2012 run of the Deadpool series. Nearer to the end, Deadpool was attempting to get himself killed as he just wanted to basically end everything. To do this, he would need a serum that removed his powers. Weirdly, having his powers removed would also give him a new lease on life that would lead to him not actually wanting to end his life and also make him handsome again. But I digress. To make this happen, he manipulated X-Force into working with him under the guise that they were chasing down someone who had attempted to assassinate him, which was kind of true. At one point, his plan involves having X-Force teleported to a location where they are all confronted by Kingpin's ally, Typhoid Mary, and pretty much like a whole army of the hand ninjas. In the very first issue of the third volume of Deadpool from 1997, Wade faces off against his old pal, Dr. Walter Langowski, aka the Alpha Flight team member and hero, Sasquatch. During their fight, not only does Deadpool give Sasquatch a physical run for his money, but he also taunts the heck out of Walter as well. He makes fun of Walter's appearance as Sasquatch, implies that he got busy with Walter's main squeeze Aurora, and threatens to lick Sasquatch's hand. Ew. Despite their feud though, in the end, Deadpool puts himself at risk to take out a nuclear threat. One that he created, but he didn't know how bad it was gonna be. And Sasquatch carries Deadpool to safety, planning to aid in his recovery, and honestly impressed by this albeit dumb but heroic act. When it comes to this next entry on our list, these two are usually my favorite to see team up, as it's constantly a back and forth between them of who is messing with who, and that's what I love to see. They just got great banter. In this instance, we had the Cable/Deadpool annual, where Deadpool, after messing with time travel, royally messes up both his and Nathan's day by putting them in a scenario where, as Cable said, they could very much actually die and they might not survive this. That is how badly Deadpool messed up here. Weirdly impressive considering how powerful both Deadpool and Cable are when they're teamed up together. This is just the beginning of the story too. The rest of the annual is actually used to explain exactly how they got here. I love in medias res storytelling. So good. And if you thought that was embarrassing, nothing's as embarrassing like tricking someone into falling into a giant pile of 372,844 pancakes in the morning, which is exactly what Deadpool did to Domino. This was back in the 2008 run of Deadpool when Wade was looking to join the X-Men. Granted, he did all this to Domino because in his crazy mind, it was a foolproof way to learn if Domino's offer to join the X-Men was really sincere and not just part of a plot to try and eliminate him. He figured if he got rid of Domino and she was there to take him out under the guise of offering him X-Men membership, the X-Men would have sent a backup team with her, which would be deployed the moment that she was taken out. When no team jumped out to take her place, he instead helped her up out of that big pile of pancakes and then offered her some of them. There's nothing that I love more than a Spider-Man and Deadpool team up. But of course, it wouldn't be complete unless it ended in complete and and total embarrassment. For one of the two of our heroes, sure, but usually, of course, for Spider-Man. I mean, Deadpool doesn't get easily embarrassed, so of course it would be Spider-Man. This went down at the end of their adventure together in Spider-Man/Deadpool issue number 18. Spider-Man and Deadpool here are confronted by their weird hybrid offspring, a clone made from both their genetic material named Itsy Bitsy. She was dangerous as all heck and even drove Spider-Man to a point where he considered taking her out. However, Deadpool, who at this point had actually been working on becoming less murderous himself, decides to compromise his own newly developing morals to take out Itsy Bitsy so that he can save Peter from making that mistake and corrupting himself in that way by taking a life. Something Peter very rarely, if ever, actually does in the comics. He is usually a pretty big goody two-shoes. This led to a cute little bromance moment after, involving a conversation about loved ones filling the empty holes inside of us, but of course, the moment was then utterly ruined mid-hug by Deadpool offering to fill Spider-Man's holes anytime. In this next turn of events, Cyclops played right into Wade's hands. This was when Deadpool was given temporary membership to the X-Men, the story that also had all those pancakes that I talked about a few entries ago. It turns out they had only offered Deadpool a place on the team because they wanted to keep a close eye on him. While hurt by this, Deadpool still did his best to play his part as an X-Man, regardless of whether or not his membership was considered to be, real by them, by helping the mutants out. He took the fall for them, and then in the end antagonized Psyche so that Psyche would actually fight an unmasked Deadpool while Wade was wearing his own unofficial X-Men costume that he'd made himself. In the end, while he didn't want to, Cyclops was forced to admit that indeed Deadpool did have moves. Now this next one wasn't the real Captain America, it wasn't even Hydra Captain America. More real though than that version, this was a version of Captain America who at the time was possessed. He had his form taken over by an alien who Deadpool had thought would come to destroy mankind, but who had really come to bring peace to Earth, but by in turn possessing all of Earth's inhabitants and removing free will from them, which would result in peace, but at a pretty high cost, the cost of all of our free will. Deadpool at this time was imbued with cool armor by another entity known as Tiamat, initially prophesied to be the villain in this scenario, but actually aiding and fighting back against the alien entity who had possessed Earth. That's also why Deadpool looks the way he does here, just FYI. While Deadpool struggled with the moral quandary of which was better, peace or free will, Deadpool ultimately decided to choose free will and defeated possessed Captain America by kicking him in a very sensitive area. Doing so in order to, of course, save the world. So weirdly, he was able to save the world by kicking Captain America in a very special place.